Cashiers.
GeoGearHeads.
Hey, we're in the midst of the mega event season here in the Northern Hemisphere, and yes, there really is a season. We have a couple of mega event planners for the 135th episode of the GeoGearHeads to give us an idea of what goes on into those. So, I'm the bad cop.
And I'm Daryl W4 with our previous guest Brawny Bear and first-time guest Dane of Team AZMO. Brawny Bear was on to talk about Geo Woodstock 12, but he's been planning the MOGA events for years, and we're thrilled to have you back. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be back.
And Dane is one of the planners for the coming MOGA 2015, but he unfortunately has dropped off the hangout, so hopefully he'll be back on here shortly. In the meantime, Brawny Bear, can you give us a quick overview of what MOGA is?
So, MOGA is like the world's largest competition that we have, geocaching competition. It consists of finding multiple caches as quickly as you can in a time period, and we have several different events there. It's basically categorized by singles. We have team events that are both two-person events where they have to cache together, and four-person events where they can kind of split up and find as many as they can in a time period as well.
Excellent, and it looks like Dane might be back on. Dane, if you are back on, can you give us what MOGA stands for and where we can find it?
Well, it's the Midwest Open Geocaching Adventure. You can find it at mogageo.org or on Facebook at facebook.com/MOGAGeo. It's the world's best geocaching competition.
Nice. Now, we asked a question last week to our viewers and our listeners about what the GC number was for the upcoming MOGA 2015. Dane, do you happen to know that answer right off the top of your head?
No, I do not.
Oh, no!
I probably should, huh? I don't know. My memory's as long as Evernote, and Daryl made me turn that off, so...
Well, MOGA 2015's page has been published for March 21st of 2015, and that is waypoint GC511F1, and many GeoGearheads got that right. No one emailed us a different answer, but sadly there can only be one winner of that GX Proxy prize package, and that's Dr. Hogo, or sorry, man, I see Horrible and I think Dr. Horrible. What does that say about me?
You're thinking of a sing-along blog, aren't you?
I am. No, but it's Horrible Hoggle. So congrats, Horrible Hoggle, and please email us with your mailing address so we can get that prize pack out for you. That email address is geogearheads@cashmaniacs.com. This is one of the best ways you can get your feedback to us as well. Our favorite, of course, is a voicemail line at 206-350-3647, since we get to hear your comments or questions in your own voice. But there's other ways, like one of our listeners who wrote to us on last week's randomized show.
Certainly, and because Icy Diamonds didn't send in voicemail, I'm going to have to read it in my voice, and I'm sure I sound nothing like Icy Diamonds. But they go on to ask, someone mentioned putting their GPSR in their lap. Alberta also has a distracted driving law, and we had a somewhat controversial ad campaign called Crotches Kill to dissuade people from trying to use their devices in their laps while driving. And really, I'm working hard to maintain a reasonable face. I did go see the picture of the ad campaign. It is a little different, shall we say, but it shows the picture of somebody looking down at their phone. You can see the light from the phone, illuminating their face as they're driving, and that really is not a good thing to do. So, thank you, Icy Diamonds. Distracted driving is just as bad as texting while driving, and it's worse than drunk driving.
Yeah, which gets into a whole nother show. But that ad campaign reminds me vaguely of a recent Amazon teaser video.
I don't know that one, and I don't know if I want to go there with you today, Daryl.
No, I'm sure you don't, but I thought you knew that one. And for anyone that wants to, you can just look up the teaser video for the Fire Phone. It made waves because it was people basically expressing enthusiasm for the lower regions. But Brylang did email us on a bunch of different things from last week's show, and he said no, he didn't break his geocaching streak because of Ingress. He's now up to 530 days. He stopped playing Ingress. While it's a very fun game, he found himself spending way too much time playing and way too much time driving around to different locations to visit portals. His gas bill for last week was way too much. Yeah, I don't know about you, Bad Cop, but I can certainly relate.
Oh, I can completely understand. It's odd that we mentioned Ingress. That's what I'm going to talk about tonight on Caching in the Northwest. But, when Ingress opened up a whole bunch of new portals, when they allowed, so many more, it really changed what I thought the game was. It was driving around. It was more like finding a cache. You had to go find a portal. Now that they're everywhere, I don't have to drive as far. I can walk, a 15, 20-minute walk, do everything I used to do in a drive. So, it depends on where you play.
It does indeed. Now he goes on to talk about the HTML emails, and he says, it looks like Groundspeak has converted to HTML emails for new cache notifications as well, so if you're getting notifications via SMS, you should now have seen what happens with those notifications. And, well, it broke the Caches app for me, which is how I get my push notifications of new publishes, and, of course, broke some of my mail filters. But we also got some more feedback on that. Someone who's a little bit less happy.
Well, we have, I'm going to go with Ingphil. They sent via email. Heard comments regarding HTML email from Groundspeak in the latest randomized episode. And take a sidebar, thank you for listening. We do love those randomized episodes. He goes on, I fully agree with the Bears assessment. It's horrible. I don't think he's mincing words there. There's been a huge backlash against this change in the forums. Yet Groundspeak's position is, we know you hate it. We don't care. We're keeping HTML with no plain text. That may not be their actual position, but that's the interpretation here. The change has caused, and he lists, email filters and parsers to break, resulted in the loss of info on some notifications, made the message unreadable in text-only email clients, made the message unreadable in HTML-aware clients for some users with poor eyesight, made the message hard to read even for users with good eyesight in some clients, bloated emails to 7 times their original size with no added info. Nobody has offered a good reason for the change or any real benefit to cachers. The general opinion seems to be the marketing department just wants to push Twitface or Farcebook links onto us for their own gratification. I'd love to see them bring back plain text as an alternative, or even better, allow me to choose my preferred email format in my preferences, but presumably this would mean they can't ram these other social medias down my throat, and they won't give us that option. Sadly, the arrogance I've come to expect from the lily pad.
Well, thanks for that rant. Yeah, thanks for that rant. I always prefer to have preference to handle that kind of stuff. But, yeah, they're not giving it to us, so we have to just kind of cope.
He's not wrong about how Groundspeak comes off as far as the arrogance either, though.
Oh, no, yeah, that's been one of the big arguments for going with the alternative listing sites is, they're run by the users, not by the company that's out there on their own little safe lily pad.
Well, it's obvious every cacher is going to have a smartphone to get these emails on, and it's going to look fine for those with really good vision and a nice smartphone.
Well, I believe that they are doing what they think is best, whether that's best for all of their users. I don't think is actually accurate, but hopefully they'll get back into something later on. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But let's get back to Brian Lang's email. And he said about the batteries, I find the battery life on my eTrex 30 lasts a full day of caching. I usually carry a spare set of batteries for every day I'll be out. I'm using the Amazon Basics rechargeable batteries, 2,000 milliamp hour AA size for my eTrex 30 and for my mouse on my iMac. And I did check those out. We'll have a link in the show notes for them as well. That's a pretty nice set of low discharge NIM batteries. It's 2,000 milliamp hours, and I want to say it was like $19 US for a pack of 8. So
for a pack of 8, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was a decent price for a pack of 4.
Yeah, so I'm thinking I might have to get back into those. Just because one of my things was I was killing those low discharge NIM batteries too quickly. If these last anywhere near as long as my old ones, and they're higher milliamp hour too, so I'll get more life per charge, then it's a win-win.
Nice. We have more feedback because I want to let you know we work to get these shows just in time for your specific needs. In fact, NICAP says that exact same thing. This show comes just in time. The North New Jersey Cashiers and Central Jersey Geocachers have teamed up to bring the first mega event to the New York City metro area. That's GC56TP7. Your Geo Woodstock interview was informative and helpful in preparing us for what to expect. While we're fully in the execution phase of our mega event, we're really looking forward to hearing some more planning tips.
Well, thank you very much. And, well, we jump right into the topic. And, well, I kind of get the impression that the biggest thing with any of these mega events in general is a good committee. And both of you guys have worked on some of those committees. So can you talk about the importance of the background committee?
Well, I'll start off first. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You've got to have a good staff. You've got to have people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and do the work. And I think that's so important with anything that you plan, especially in the events. So when it comes to doing a mega event, you're going to expect a lot of people. You know that you want to create an event or actually just a whole environment that people are going to want to come back to the next year after year after year. And if you look at some of the big events that are out there, like Geo Woodstock, like MOGA, like the ASP event that they have up in the New York area, some of the ones that they have that are mega events, there's a reason that they're successful. And the reason is because they create an environment that people have fun at. They want to come back year after year after year. So you got to think, what can make us unique? What makes us stand out from other events? And I think that's important, that when you're putting the event together, that you're going to create something that is not done anywhere else. Because if it's just another social event, if it's just another competition, if it's just another gathering in how many caches you find in a 24-hour period, people do it once and then they're like, okay, I've done this before. This is the same event. So you got to be something unique, like the pirate event that they have that's over in England is so well attended because they're unique every year. They do something every year. So that's really what you got to do. I mean, you got to, when you're thinking about planning and stuff, the things you got to really start in the mega event is how do I make my event, so unique that people will come year after year after year.
Well, that really speaks to the Go Caching crew who was on the show, what was that, about a month and a half ago, Chris?
That sounds about right, yeah. They've done quite a job on their events to make themselves stand out.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that's another one of those. But the Geo Woodstocks, MOGAs, that already has a set kind of format. Same thing with the Geo Coin Fest. And in many cases, you actually have to have a lot of work put in ahead of time. But even really before you'd want to go and post that you're doing a mega event or attempting to do a mega event, I would think there's a lot of stuff that really goes into it, aside from just the what is the event. So what kind of stuff do you need to think about before you really start to even plan to put out that mega?
So, Dane, you want to talk a little bit?
Well, in the case of the first thing that they talked to us about was how many hotels are there, how close to the event, how many camping spaces, how close to the event, what kind of amenities are available, do we have a place where we can put the punches, do we have because MOGA has competition punches that are just out there, they're not published caches, they're what the competitors go out and find. But then for each of those that you put out there, you have to find a place to put a permanent cache. So do you have the place to put all of these caches? And I mean, we're going to be putting with when MOGA comes to town, you put out 400 caches, brand new caches in the area. So I mean, that's a lot of the early stage stuff, and then get the fun stuff too, like what's your theme going to be and things of that nature. And we went through that pretty fast. We were on a little whirlwind tour when we did it because it was supposed to be somewhere else, and their deal with their park system fell through. And John Elfrank called me and said, "Do you guys want to do this?" And we had I think a week and a half before MOGA to try and put something together to be able to announce it.
Well, that doesn't seem like much time, and that does seem to happen more often than you'd probably like. And I do want to talk about the theme that you mentioned a little bit, but we kind of hit on some of the requirements for the different types of, we'll call them franchise events, I guess, for this. And Brownie Bear, you actually worked with the Geo Woodstock, obviously. Can you give us an idea of what some of the requirements are for Geo Woodstock?
So really, I mean, Geo Woodstock, whenever I first put in a bid to bring that to St. Charles, one of the things they told me right off the bat was, this is your event, make it any way you want. There is no, there's no really hardened way to do this. We wanted to keep some of the traditional parts in there, like the reviewer panel, some of the sessions that we did, the training sessions and whatnot. We wanted to keep those in there. We obviously wanted to keep, Geo Woodstock as a big social event, a big gathering and everything. But I think that, for the most part, it was like pretty much on our own how we wanted to do our theme and how we wanted to do it. It's kind of like MOGA. We have certain criteria that's involved in MOGA, and Dane can tell you that we require like 4 different things in MOGA. One, we require the competition. We require the ability to hide and leave caches that are out there and stuff. We require a good number of hotels that people can stay at and good camping facilities that people can camp at. So those are the only requirements we really wrap around it. Whatever you want to do and how creative you want to get beyond that kind of branches out. And it's kind of the same way with Geo Woodstock. We were kind of given free rein on how we wanted to put that together and what we wanted to set up. And I think that, when I told him, I said, well, can you give me some guidelines, some help and everything? It was Monkey Brad who actually said, you're really on your own. It's however you want to do it. I can only give you suggestions on the way to do things. So, make it your own. I mean, that's the important thing about a mega event, is that it is your own.
Excellent. Well, and the theme, I think, really does go to shaping that event and what's going to be in it. So, Dane, you had brought up the theming most recently. You touched a little bit on it earlier, Brownie Bear. But, Dane, can you kind of go into what the theme is as far as the importance and how that shapes the event?
For 2018, the theme is essentially treasure hunting, ancient Egyptian treasure. We're going to have a very strong ancient Egyptian theme, but the overall overreaching theme is that the participants are Indiana Jones, Lara Croft types out looking for treasure that was hidden by the last Egyptian pharaoh.
And how is that kind of, obviously I'm assuming the caches themselves are kind of going to be themed toward that, but how does that kind of shape the planning for the event itself as well?
Well, you got to look at how to work all of those things into the event, from decorations to artwork to the geocoin to the caches themselves and MOGA traditionally now has an event cache that's a special cache that's themed around the event, and so you got to come up with something pretty cool for the theme along those lines as well. We looked at food. I think we're going to actually take the easy way out on that and tell everybody and get a couple people to set up lunch and dinner events instead of catering food. But we did look at the option of trying to do some kind of an Egyptian themed catering, but we bailed on that. We're tailoring some of the different games and things that go on, side games that go on. We're tailoring those towards Egyptian things, Egyptian themes, Egyptian games as well.
Yeah, so it sounds like this fictional theme that you've set up is going to really shape so much of what's going on. And planning without a good theme doesn't sound like it's really going to work very well. But Brownie Bear, you had for the Geo Woodstock 12 a non-fictional theme, which was the history of St. Charles, Missouri.
Yeah, so Lewis and Clark was kind of a big item for us because that's really where they both came together. That's where they really, the whole core discovery really launched from St. Charles. You can say, well, they were in Wood River, Illinois before that, but Lewis and Clark were really never together until they launched from St. Charles. And the fact that they camped right on the banks where we had the event was huge for us. So we wanted to kind of continue on with that theme. We have a museum there. Old Town St. Charles is just an absolutely phenomenal place as far as the history goes and everything. So we wanted to keep that theme and we wanted to keep it. But I want to go back to something that Dane said earlier that I think was important. On Geo Woodstock, we tried to do something different. Usually, traditionally, Geo Woodstock, for everyone, all 11 of them have had catered events where they've had food and everything. And like Dane said with MOGA, he decided not to do the catering event. We tried to use some of the local businesses to do our meals and everything. And what we found is we just didn't use enough of them. And we felt that we kind of fell down on that and the fact that we should have had more people involved. They should have taken us more seriously. A lot of the places that we had chose really didn't staff up because they thought they were going to have 20 or 30 people in, and we really overran the town. So as far as the planning and everything goes in that, if you try something different, make sure that people are prepared for it. Just make sure that you have enough places identified, or that you really do the planning up front. I think that's the one area that we certainly could have improved in. Some people had to wait an hour for their lunch. We apologize for that. Obviously, we didn't plan that and didn't want that to happen. We thought that with the 4-hour window that we had for meals, that it'd give everybody plenty of time to really use their vouchers and get out there and hit the different places that we had, and we found that most people eat about the same hour every day. So next time we'll know that we need to plan that a little different.
Yeah, well, live and learn.
And a lot of that is education to the geocachers themselves. They need to know, hey, everybody's going to hit here at noon, so come at 11, come at 2, spread it out, because the geocachers know how many people are going to be at the event. And, I put it back on them.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, that's the kind of stuff that you have to really put into the master plan, because you have to worry about feeding the people at most of these mega events. It's not like your, quick flash mobs. You have to actually, feed them. It's not just, here's some candy, go away now. And you have to worry about some of the other things like, waste and, trash, that kind of stuff. So what is it that really goes into that master plan?
Man, just about everything. When you're putting committees together to plan this stuff, first of all, you got to think of every area. You got to think of, and what I like to do is I like to take an event and I like to run it through my head. And I think, okay, before people show up, what do I need to have done? When people show up, I need to walk through the day. They're going to register. They're going to pick up their packet, just like the Midwest Geo Bash. I mean, they've got it down to a science that it runs so smooth now because they've done the same thing for so long. They got the same venue now that they can do over and over. It's just an excellent event for them to do. And really, it almost becomes second nature when you do the same event over and over and over again. If you're planning a mega event for the first time, you don't have that luxury. You don't have people that you can draw off of. You're trying to put something together. So the first thing you do is you plan what's going to happen before the event. What do I absolutely have into place? And the first thing you got to do is venue. I mean, everything is location, location, location. Like, you know, we say that in the real estate world. You know that location is everything. And that is so true with planning a mega event. So you pick your location, you make sure that you got everybody who's involved in that location on board with you, and then once you got that done, then all the planning goes around that particular location of how many hotel rooms do I have? Do I have a visitors bureau I can work with? There's just so many different elements that you have to think about before the actual event happens itself. Then come the day of the event, you got to walk through your head on exactly how is this going to roll out. People are going to come in. We're going to get them registered. We're going to get them their packets and stuff. What are some of the things that we have that are set up as far as the event goes during the day? How do we put our closing together? At the end of the closing, what do we got to do after the event to clean up everything? And then afterwards, let's poll the people. Let's find out what can we do to be better next year. Is there something that I did this year that didn't work? What did I do that did work? And make sure that your staff is involved in that every step of the way.
Now, when we're talking location, is it better to have it in the same location time and time again, or is it better to let it move? Do you get different feedback from different people, different ideas?
Well, I think in the past we have, especially with something like MOGA. The very first MOGA we put on was at Hahn State Park in Missouri, and while it was a great venue, beautiful park and everything, the feedback that we got over the 82 people or so that attended that event actually said, you know, we're going to come back next year, but we want to see it move around. We want to see it in different areas. We want to see different places. It's what brings us back. I think with a pure social event like Geo Bash, it works to have it in the same venue because it's, you know, a lot of people camp there. They got great facilities for putting the event on, and people come there to socialize with each other. It's not all about going out and finding a ton of caches. It's really, if you look at Geo Bash, it's all about staying there in that one location. So it works for them. So I think that really based upon the type of mega event you want to put on, it's important to really think that through and say, is this an event that needs to travel around to different areas, or is this just a social event that people are going to come back to year after year after year and just enjoy the company of the geocachers?
So in reality, you said it depends.
Yes, it does depend. That's a long answer for that.
I completely agree with your whole train of thought, but I thought it depends.
Well, one important thing to touch on there is that with MOGA's unlike most other events in that MOGA is very, very, very much about going out and caching. It's not so much about hanging out and talking to each other and eating and vendors. It's about going out and finding lots of caches. Well, if you were here last year and you found all the caches, there aren't any caches to go out and find this year. So you got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, excellent point. And there's there's some of the events like West Bend Cache Bash that are in the same location. Again, that's run by the Chamber of Commerce, so obviously they're trying to bring people in, and they turn over, you know, a couple hundred caches or something like that every year. But it's not like they're completely replacing every cache in the area every year. But I think that is something to think about too. If you're into a mega event, is you do want to have a bunch of caches around, because let's face it, we're cachers. We want to find these caches. So is there a way that you found to work with local cachers outside of the committee to try to encourage them to place more caches?
Well, I think cashers in general are going to get excited about an event that's coming to their town, right? You have a large mega event like Geo Woodstock, for instance, in St. Charles. Every cacher in the area that was part of the St. Louis Area Geocachers Association, or as we like to say, SLAGA, really got out there. They put new logs in their cache. They were excited about bringing people in and people finding their caches. And the other thing is, you know, you love to see logs on your cache. So it's almost automatic. They're going to go out. They're going to hide new caches. They're going to put out clever hides that they want to like say, hey, no one has ever seen this kind of hide before and stuff. You know, I look at Major Boothroyd, you know, and some of the caches that he did for Geo Woodstock, the gadget caches that he did. Even though he's up out of Illinois and stuff, he came down, you know, and was still able to hide 4 caches. Him and another one of our local cachers, Pete. They were able to hide these really unique caches in the area. They got hundreds and hundreds of finds and stuff. So I think when you bring a big event to town, it just goes without saying that you're going to have people who are in the local caching community get excited about the kind of caches they hide. And even though they're not on your staff, they're going to go out and they're going to make sure that they got fresh logs and everything's updated and stuff. That their caches are all in good shape and everything, and maintenance is done on them, and then they're going to hide new caches, you know, just for the masses that come into town.
Yeah, now on the flip side of that, with things like MOGA, you don't want people placing caches in your game space. So how is that addressed? Is that just something that you work through a reviewer?
Well, our approach right now is that we're out there already putting those game spaces on the map. We are already identifying where caches are going to go for different parts of the, because we're putting out geo art, we're putting out power trails, we're putting out the main event caches, we're putting out the special event caches, and so yeah, we're identifying those on the map now and getting spaces reserved. And we're a small group. Southeast Missouri is pretty small geocaching group. It's been like a big black hole. Started really putting a lot of numbers out there.
Oh, hold on a moment, Dane, because you actually lost you for a minute there. You were talking about the you were talking about the black hole, and then you got sucked into one.
Yeah, well, I've just always referred to it as the Southeast Missouri black hole of caching, because for a long time when I first got here, there was just this big, huge chunk of map that had nothing covering it up like you'd see everywhere else. And just in recent, we've been actually putting more and more caches out. We actually had a couple of counties down here when I started caching that did not have a single cache in them.
Yeah, that definitely makes it tougher for challenge caches.
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
Exactly. Well, when the rubber hits the road, the budgets are what really drive these mega events. What do you guys do? How do you plan for an unknown number of people to show up and provide all the support that they're going to need? What's your budgeting process? Or
excruciating.
Just don't tell me you just wing it.
So far, I winged a budget. Basically, Mike and John said, "Hey, we need a budget." Mm-hmm. I said, "Okay, what do I put in it?" Stuff. So
glad we were helpful.
I put stuff in my budget, and then actually Lenny, who ran 2014's, sent me a prospective budget to start from. I didn't know what some of the stuff was that was on it, so I just deleted that stuff and started from what was left. And I went around and around with John 2 or 3 times, and then came up with one that I finally sent to him that he said, "Okay, send that to the director's board." And I believe next Monday we'll be getting on the phone and talking over that budget, and then I think that I'll actually have a final budget. Or, well, actually, you know, a starting budget, actually. I'll finally have a starting budget, because final budget, who knows? because a lot of these numbers are, okay, well, I think we'll have this many people wanting this, and we'll have this many wanting this, but fortunately, we're going to get our store, for those people that are into MOGA, we're going to get our store online early this year, and so we'll be tossing out some incentives for people to get involved early in that store, which is just going to help us with the final budget, being able to order precisely what we need or closer to what we need for the event. And the closer we get those expenses to what we're actually going to spend, the more we can plan for what we need to do and the more money that goes into the charities, because that's the other thing about MOGA is MOGA, all the t-shirts and e-packages and all of that stuff goes into charities. All of the proceeds for MOGA that comes in from a MOGA go out to local food banks.
Nice. That's really good to hear. You know, helping a charity with the extra you have is so nice. What can I say? Now, still on budgeting, how important are major sponsors as opposed to your online store or ticket sales?
Oh my gosh, they're huge. I mean, you know, if you can get some good sponsors behind you, it just really helps the whole carrying the burden of the cost and everything. I remember when I first started MOGA back in 2004, the first event I had, actually it was me and my wife that decided we're going to put $1,000 out of our pocket. We became the major sponsors of that event. As a matter of fact, if I think back, we were the only sponsors of that event. And we were just hoping to recoup some of our money. You know, if we didn't, you know, it wasn't that big a deal because we committed $1,000 up front in order to do it. And we didn't come anywhere close to it. But the money that we made off the event and everything, we went out and we bought a bunch of prizes and we gave everything back, you know, ordered trophies and ribbons and all sorts of things for the competition. But it's one of those things that if you don't have a prior budget, you have no idea what to expect on something like that. And I want to go back to what Dane said about charities and stuff. You know, I think that a lot of these mega events that are put on and stuff, like the Geo Woodstock, we raised, we ended up with about almost $5,000 for the Wounded Warrior Project. And then if you take that and then the fact that I got my company to match that, we donated almost $10,000 to the Wounded Warrior Project.
Impressive.
Yeah, and so, you know, I mean, to me, it's about giving back to the community. And when we had a cashier, Elke, who really started she said we were up at Mark Twain Lake doing a MOGA, and we were in the planning stages of it, and she came back and said, "Hey, can I do a food drive?" And we said, "Yeah, absolutely, that would be great. You know, we would love to donate something back." Well, it was so successful, and we did so well on that MOGA, donating canned goods back to the local food bank, along with some cash incentive and stuff that we had for them. We decided that's what we're going to do from now on, and that's what we're going to support. So we've been doing it ever since, and we've done. I mean, we've filled up trailer fulls of canned goods and donated thousands of dollars to local food banks. And you know, in the small communities that we do MOGA in, we're not in major cities or anything. We're always in a small town by a small lake, at, you know, usually an Army Corps of Engineers facility or you know, some state-owned facility. And most of the towns we do it in, even like where Dane is down in Jackson, Missouri, I mean, they're small communities that really need our help. And so for us to do things like that just really makes us feel good, and the heart of a geocacher is just absolutely huge. And I can't tell you how generous that, you know, people just, I mean, they go above and beyond what you would expect out of a normal human being. And I love geocachers for that reason.
Oh, that's fantastic. I had no idea you're able to give so much to the Wounded Warrior Project, and that you got your company to double it. That's a lot of legwork on your part to benefit a charity. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We were glad to do it.
Now, before we move on, there's one more question I want to ask, and Dane, you're really going to want to know this. Brawny Bear, what's the secret formula to putting on a mega event? There's got to be just a formula you've got that you're not telling us. Go ahead, spill it right now.
The secret formula, okay, I'm just going to divulge this one time, so I hope that people who are listening will understand this.
I'm ready to take notes.
Yeah, it's having a great staff, having people willing to do the work. It just makes it so much easier when people are willing to roll up their sleeves and get involved and just follow through on things to where you don't have to micromanage them all through the processes, that they're just willing to say, hey, I've got this, I'm going to run with it. You got to pick your good staff, and I think that is the secret ingredient to having a great event.
I love it.
Well, I understand there is a top secret document that you sent me with some guidelines that you've built along the years of doing mega events that you're going to allow us to share with the audience.
Absolutely, and you know, I apologize. I wish I could have got it out there sooner, but I completely forgot about it today. I had to go buy a new car for my daughter, and that occupied most of my day. As you know, a new car buying experience is never a good one. It's usually a full day of doing things, but we got her a car. But I did send it to you. I hope you get it out on your website, and I would love for anybody who's interested in doing it to give me feedback on it. Let me know what needs to be expanded in that. This is a real live working document. It's not like final or anything, but it helps you kind of understand the steps you got to go through in order to put on a mega event.
So we'll have that link in our show notes for anyone that wants to check it out. But you know, that we've had a lot of great information in the show, and we're going to wrap it up. Before I let you guys go, though, I want one thing from each of you on what might surprise people in a budget. Dane, why don't we start with you, since you're in the process really deep right now?
Well, the biggest thing is just how big the budget actually is. I tell you what, putting on one of these mega events, if you've never done it, yeah, you have no idea. I mean, they said put together this budget, and so I started putting things, okay, well, we're going to need these, and then I price them a little bit and get an idea, and well, we'll need these, and we'll need these. And then Lenny calls me up, and he says, oh, don't forget, you're going to need this, 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 and this, and basically this is like running down to Office Depot and buying aisle 7. And, yeah, it's way bigger than I ever imagined. I mean, it's at least 5 or 6 times bigger budget than I would have dreamed it was before I started doing this.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I got to agree with him. I mean, there's a lot of things in there. You know, the bigger the event gets, obviously, you know, the more you're going to spend. Your coin spendage is going to be outrageous. You know, the number of path tags that you add and just all the swag that you put into an event is going to be huge. But then you got to think of, like he said, all the stuff that you need on the back end that people aren't thinking of. And I mean, I wish I could show you in front of me right now what my living room still looks like from Geo Woodstock, because we got boxes upon boxes that are just piled of stuff, you know, that I have no idea where it all came from, but it's stuff that we had to have for the event. And I mean, packing tape alone, we probably went through 7 or 8 cases, and it's super expensive, but it's all the little things that you don't really think about at event time. You know, you're thinking about people's packets, but you don't think about all the stuff on the back end. And then when you start putting all that together, you're like, my goodness, you know, this is just going to cost an arm and a leg to put on. So you got to figure that if you're not spending between $50,000 and $100,000 on an event, a mega event, then your mega event's probably not going to be as big as you think it is. And so, you know, you just really need to kind of put the dollars in there. You need to figure everything that you're going to need, but don't overspend. And empower your staff to come back to you and say, okay, in order for me to do, like, for instance, the travel bug table, for me to do that, I need baggies, I need markers, you know, I need sheets of paper and stuff. We're gonna need to be able to label all this stuff and everything. I need bins to put everything in, and then, oh, by the way, we're gonna have to store it overnight, so, you know, we're gonna have to have a facility to put it in. And so you start thinking about all those costs. Have them go out and figure out their costs, and then supply you with their budget, because I think after you put all those together, then you realize, man, how big it really turns out to be.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bronny Bear, for joining us again and giving us a little bit more info. And Dane, we're looking forward to getting you back on the show in a few months when MOGA gets a little bit more settled, and hopefully all that budgeting and everything is done.
That'll be a good day.
But before we get to our list of the coming shows, get an email ready to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com and title it Question 136 in honor of next week's show, who you'll need to figure out. We'll need you to figure out, rather, at least one of the two inventors who created the parking meter back in 1935. Then email us either of their names with your geocaching.com screen name by 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time on August 6th. That's an email titled Question 136 to GeoGearHeads@CacheManiacs.com. But how does that parking meter actually tie into next week's show, Bad Cop?
I don't know. I hate parking meters. I absolutely hate them. But, you know, parking, I'm not alone. That's pretty much the bane of the existence of any road cacher. And that's what we're talking about next week. So, actually, I guess it would be more road construction than parking, wouldn't it? But DeBear will return with us. Yeah, DeBear will return with us next week for episode 136, Road Caching 5. We've done 4 of these. This is the 5th one. You can watch that live August 7th at 6:10 p.m. Pacific time, which is all that's important to me. But that's 9:10 p.m. Eastern. It's actually 11:10 a.m. August 8th in New South Wales, Australia, or 2:10 a.m. in the UK, because, you know, we do have listeners from the UK. You can watch and participate live through the Google Plus Hangout on Air, or just stream it through YouTube. Make sure you circle the GeoGearHeads for all those events, and follow us on Facebook or Twitter for the notifications just before we start recording, because sometimes there's technical difficulties and we're a little late. That sometimes happens, like, well, this show and me. But other than that, the next show I don't think we're going to be late on. Now, August 14th, we're going to talk with the geocaching doc. August 21st, we're talking about 3D printed maps, and that's one I'm really excited for. August 28th, we're doing another randomized, so get those questions in because we need your feedback for those randomized shows. And September 4th, we're talking about caching offline. So head on over to GeoGearHeads.com and hit the upcoming shows link for an updated list of all of our scheduled shows.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all of our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads@cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider being a patron or making a PayPal donation through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Offenauer and Daryl Wanberg. This show is copyright 2014 by Daryl Wanberg. All rights reserved.
Cash with the Cachemaniacs.